remember not knowing how to swim. I grew up near Lake Erie. I started swim lessons before the age of 4 and joined a swim team by the age of 6. I've competed in 4 full Ironman triathlons thanks. As well as swimming competitions in the open water in 3 of the 5 Great Lakes, including Lake Superior. And yes, it is very cold, even in August. So, in other words, I'm not sure if it's because I was a fish in a former life, or if it's all that time that I spent in the water, but somehow it makes sense that I became a scientist using these tiny fish to study how water pollutants affect our health. These are zebrafish, small minnows named for their stripes. Remarkably, over 80% of their genes are related to genes that we know are involved in human disease. And they can produce over 4 generations in just 1 year, which makes them a super helpful tool in studying how environmental contaminants can lead to disease in people even over multiple generations. So speaking of contaminants, due to regulations, we've come a long way since the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland caught fire 50 years ago due to industrial pollutants being dumped in there for decades. Actually, I don't know if you knew this, but the Rouge River here in Detroit also caught fire at around the same time and for the same reason. But despite progress in industrial and agricultural regulations and cleaning up legacy contaminants like PCBs and heavy metals, we are still living in a soup of contaminants. There are literally thousands of chemicals that come from products in our homes that we use on a daily basis that are not regulated, and they don't need to be put on the product labels. And because of this, we are exposed to over 100 chemicals in our homes every day. Do you guys know what these have in common? So they're all products or items that we commonly see in our homes. They're also all potential contaminants. There's no doubt that pharmaceuticals are very important, and in some cases vital. But when these chemicals leave our bodies and go down the drain, most wastewater or sewage treatment facilities don't take them out of the water, and so they end up in our rivers and our lakes. We have actually done testing, water testing in Lake St. Clair and the Detroit River, and have found pharmaceuticals, antibiotics, and heart and cholesterol medications and pain relievers in the water. And these are waterways that are drinking water sources for a lot of us, for millions of people. We also found food-related contaminants like caffeine and really high amounts of artificial sweeteners and sugars, as well as PFAS or perfluorinated compounds that are named forever chemicals because they can stay in our body as well as in the environment for up to 50 years. These can be found in microwave popcorn bags, in fast food wrappers, in nonstick coatings on pans, as well as in personal care products like makeup and waterproof gear and boots. There are also another product of concern are wipes. So wipes are marketed as biodegradable and flushable, but most of them don't actually break down when they get into the sewer systems. So these combine with fats, oils, and greases, as well as other trash that's been flushed down the toilet, and they create these fatbergs. And once these fatbergs clog pipes, like the one seen here, they can literally, sewage can back up into basements, as well as being diverted into our Great Lakes, as well as in rivers. And then there are plastics, which are literally everywhere. These are accumulating in our bodies, as well as in animals and in our environment. A recent study showed that a single plastic tea bag can release 11 billion nanoplastics and up to 3 billion microplastics into hot water. Studies have also found that water bottles, as well as tap water, over 90% of those contain microplastics that we're drinking. So the rivers might not be on fire, but there are consequences to this contaminant soup of modern life. Many of these compounds, especially plastics and hormones and chemicals that affect our hormones, have been associated with diseases such as obesity, diabetes, autism, Alzheimer's, and several forms of cancer. And even in our lab, we have used zebrafish to show that a single exposure to one chemical can lead to infertility, as well as decreases in learning and behavior. And these are at small concentrations, at parts per trillion, which is equivalent to a pinch of sand or a drop of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. These effects we usually see in adults, especially if they have an exposure when they're younger. And these health effects can be carried on for up to 2 generations. And this is because the chemicals interfere with what genes are turned on and what genes are turned off. And so if grandpa is exposed to a chemical, his granddaughter could have effects even if she was never actually exposed. These products are like a boomerang in that they're coming back to hurt us. I'm sure that our grandparents wouldn't want their legacy to include this, all of these diseases, nor do we want that for our grandchildren. We know that these diseases are increasing, and they're also increasing financial burdens on individual households, as well as entire countries' economies. There is an old saying that the solution to pollution is dilution. But with nearly 8 billion people on this planet, that solution's not going to work. So I have a proposal. We already have Meat-Free Monday, and I would never want to impose on Taco Tuesday. So I suggest Toxin-Free Thursday. We can break it down into small steps and just do a little bit every week. So for example, in week 1, pay attention to the chemicals that you use in your homes that contain chemicals that you can't even read their name or you don't know what they are, in your lotions and shampoos and weed killers and detergents. And replace those with products where you do know what the ingredients are and that you would feel safe using around children and pets. Week 2, pay attention to the plastics that you're using. I mean, it's impossible to get rid of all of them, but figure out what you could get rid of or replace with non-disposable or biodegradable products. And remember to not flush wipes or trash down the toilet. In week 3, eat real food, fresh food and drinks that are not made with preservatives or synthetic chemicals like artificial sweeteners and pesticides. If we combine this with Wellness Wednesday, we may even be able to get rid of a lot of the pharmaceuticals that we're taking. Together, we can shift away from this contaminant soup and create demand for products that profit from our health rather than from disease and pollution. And with your help, taking these small steps, I might even want to be a fish in my next life. Thank you.